I want to thank Michelle Nathan at the office and the volunteers for organizing the gathering. I want to thank Elana. It's going to be sharing of her wisdom with us to help us to get through a difficult time. Who remembers the Asterix and Obelix comics? Do you remember them? Right, so there was Asterix in Britain, and there the magic potion was tea. There was nothing that a cup of tea couldn't solve, right? So we wish it was so in the real world, but the Chaim, there you go, Cynthia, the Chaim to you. Always good to have a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, and even if we can't meet together around the table, at least we can see each other and have a cup of tea together virtually. So I want to thank Michelle and Elana and the Telfed volunteers for putting this gathering together. And even though we're saddened by what's happening, we're determined to move forward. It's a tough road that we're on, but please God, we're going to get through it. We'll get through it together. And we'll be stronger when we get through it on the other side, even though it's a very tough road to go on. But being together and sharing a cup of tea together, that's what's going to help us a little bit more to get through the difficult times, which we will. So I want to thank you for joining us. And thank you to Elana for sharing of her wisdom. And let's also think of these times. Let's think of the unity that we witness in our community and the unity we witness here, even just here on Zoom, all of us coming together. Let's take that feeling of unity with us, because that's going to help see us through difficult periods. And we know this is not a short path that we're on. If they continue with the ground incursion, it's going to take a while. So we wish we utilize this platform to wish our soldiers well, that they should be safe, that they should be victorious. We pray that the hostages should return safely. And I pray for each one of you that you and your families should be well, that we gather together now to hear from Elana, to strengthen one another, and that please God soon we'll gather together again face to face and have a happy l'chaim with a cup of tea or coffee. So have a good evening, have a safe evening, a quiet evening, and thanks for joining us here at Telfed, so that we can be together, strengthen one another, and strengthen others. Toda rabah.
Thanks, Doron. Hi, everybody. It's wonderful to see your faces. I'd love it if you could all turn your videos on, then we can see each other's faces. It's a great get-together because we can't get together personally. I, together with Rose, had this wonderful idea of putting together all our coffee cups. So we've got Haifa here today, we've got Jerusalem, we've got Modin, we've got Netanya, we've got Pardes Hana, and it's just so, I hope I haven't left anybody out. It's just so wonderful to be able to all connect, especially since we are going through such difficult times, everybody. So I'd like to take this opportunity to officially welcome you all, and let's sit and let's listen to some emotional aid from Elana. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our speaker. Elana has over 30 years experience as a counseling and organizational psychologist. She's trained by the International Trauma Institute in Israel and worked as a first responder in trauma during COVID and earthquakes in Turkey. Currently, she volunteers as a crisis counselor and is training helpers in Israel in emotional aid, providing practical, proven tools to deal with the trauma of war and support emotional health and well-being in adults and children at this time. I think this is something that we can all do within big doses right now. So I'd like to hand you over to Elana. Welcome, Elana.
Hi. Okay. There we go. Sorry, mine was muted from the Balabosta there, Michelle. thank you for welcoming me, and Daron, thank you, Rabbi, for starting us off with such beautiful words of leadership and chizuk. Michelle, thank you for inviting me to tea. I see there are lots of people who are coming to have tea with me. I hope you've all got your cups ready, and some of us might even have something a little stronger. As Michelle said, feel free to turn on your cameras. I've really come to have a conversation with all of you, and I'm hoping we can have a conversation. I'm going to try and keep it to about a half an hour. And if there are questions, I think maybe you could just interrupt me if it gets a bit rough because I'm not able to deal with everything. Then maybe we can just put some of our thoughts in the chat and deal with it towards the end. I'm also going to ask Michelle to help me manage our tea meeting. So like all good teas, we're not getting together to gossip, but I thought maybe we could start. Michelle, is everybody muted at the moment? It looks like you've done that.
Yes. Everyone's
okay.
muted.
I wonder if we could put everybody on for a minute just before I get started.
Okay, sure.
If it's possible.
I can ask all to unmute. Yes. Ask all to unmute from here. Ask all to unmute.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's it. So
okay, so I just thought, I know that we've got people from all different parts of the country here. Michelle, just remind me, we've got some people from Modi'in. How many of you are from Modi'in?
wave your hand. Wave your hands.
Wave your hands so I can see who. Okay, lovely. Great. And where else are we? Are we from Jerusalem as well?
Jerusalem.
So, hello.
And
I missed that. Okay. And where else are we from? Have I left anyone else? And I can see where some of us are here from.
Hannah.
Don't be left.
We're from Netanya.
Natanya. Renana.
Wow, there are 40 of us, there are 42 of us having tea here together. How unbelievable is that? Wow. Well, thank you for having me. And I bought my own tea. I think we have all bought our own tea. So I'm going to earn my place at the table by sharing with you some thoughts. So Michelle and Telfed asked me to speak about a tool that I've been using as a first responder. And I thought that we could have a bit of fun with that. But before we got going, I wanted to ask everybody if you had to just sort of tell me one word, just one word, how you're feeling. Kind of just, let's go around. Just tell me how you're feeling right now at this moment. Not every day, not all day, not up and down, not when you sleep, not when you wake up, but right now as you're sitting here with me. How are you feeling? Anxious. Any other thoughts? Let me hear some voices.
Fine. Angry.
Yeah.
Fine. Angry. Okay, good. I'm loving it. I'm starting to feel human. What else?
Sad. Fine.
Oh, you said it. What else? Come on, tell me.
I'm fine. I'm
fine. Yeah.
I'm
good.
fine.
Okay. We got anxious, sad, angry, fine.
Helpless.
Any others?
Helpless.
Helpless. I hear you, Julie. Any others?
Worried.
Pardon?
Worried.
Worried, of course. There's so much uncertainty. Okay, so a lot of those words are not very nice places. I mean, fine is okay, but it's not as good as good, right? So we find ourselves living in our bodies and in our lives full of lots of different negative emotions. And one of the things I want to talk to you about is some tools you can use yourself. You can teach it to your grandchildren, your friend. Maybe we should mute everybody, Michelle, just because there's a lot of background noise for me, if that's possible. If you do want to say something, maybe just put your hand up, or if you know how to write it in the chat or whatever. I'm keen to hear all your voices as well. So as I was saying, we kind of, this tool that I'm using, it's a first responder tool. Why is it a first responder tool? So I thought I'd kick off by just explaining something to you in a fun way. So I'm going to use something called the brain fist model. Using my hand over here, right? You can see it? So if we were to imagine that this is a good picture of my brain and your brain, of all our brains, okay? This is called the brain fist model. And it's really a great tool just in a very basic way to understand why we have these feelings. And when we do unmute. Now, can you hear me? Okay, good. I saw all the waving and I thought you were just saying hi, and then it made me concentrate for a minute on my mic. All right, so when your brain is fully functional, when we are really good, when we are healthy, and when we are not coping with trauma and in the middle of a war that is full of sadness and pain and fear and unknown, but also, as Rabbi Doron said, full of miracles of unity and just it is so magnificent for us to be part of this people right now. So when we are living our lives in a more normal environment, our brain is generally healthy like this. What happens is we have three parts. So this part, my fingers that I'm waving at you, that is the most sophisticated part of our brain. It's called the neocortex. And it lives like this over the other two parts. What are the other two parts? If I open my palm like this, the palm of my hand is my primitive brain, my brain stem, if you like. Now, the language of my primitive brain stem is a very physical language. And that's very important to understand, because just now when I explain what happens to us when we're stressed, you'll see why so many of us get headaches, are getting tummy aches, are getting depressed, are getting also helpless, are getting all sorts of different things. Because the part of our brain that is really in charge is our very physical functioning brain. And the language of that brain is definitely not words, it's not logic, it's not be positive. So this is our primitive brain. Inside, next to our primitive brain, is the next part of our brain called the limbic system. That's our emotional brain, okay? Inside there lives our amygdala. So this brain is the brain that is about giving meaning to the sensations of the primitive brain. And it really does not have a lot of tools at its disposal. This brain, the limbic brain, gives meaning in typically one of four ways. Fight, flight, get the hell out of here, right? Freeze, or collapse. And it is a very physical, again, in charge commando. So at this point, when our neocortex becomes detached and is really reduced to non-functional by our brain, by our autonomic nervous system, because it's not really needed, it's not seen as essential, because all our sensations are happening here in the more primitive brain, we tend to rely on fast defensive responses, our fight, flight, freeze, or collapse. And so we often find ourselves very short, and physiologically, there's a lot of stress being stored in our body. The first thing that I do as a first responder, before you do post-traumatic stress debriefing, any kind of therapeutic or psychoeducational intervention with anybody, you have to connect up our ability to process language, thoughts, to actually have rationality. So in order to connect up, we've got some exercises. They're really fun. I'm going to teach them to you. And they literally are helping you make your brain work. So I've done a few of these exercises in my crisis counseling just right here around me. And I can just tell you that a couple of days ago, I spoke to a young mommy who was in Renana, but too frightened to come out of her mamad. She had two little girls, and she was terrified because she kept having these thoughts of these barbaric acts that she had seen on TV and on her social media. And she was really believing that people were coming at the door, and it was a very real fear. So she would not come out of her mamad. She couldn't take care of her 2 little girls, and they asked me to speak to her. And I literally, she had no signal in her mamad, so the signal kept dropping and coming. That's number one. Number two, her little girls were very frightened because they could feel mommy. And so there was a lot of screaming and shouting, and we just spent literally 8 minutes together. And that was about a week ago. The very next day, she sent me a WhatsApp meeting message and said, you know what, Elana, I actually managed to leave my mamad. I'm still frightened, but I made a shopping list. And a week ago, her mom sent me a message saying, I want to tell you that my daughter is now shopping. Every day she leaves the flat with her little girls. She's able to take care of them. She goes downstairs to the basement, to the car park at the end of her, on the ground of her building. And she made friends with other mommies. And so she feels less alone, etc., etc. So the learning here is that we have got great wisdom, but sometimes we're a bit disconnected from that. So how do we connect? The first part of my toolkit is, and it's not mine, it's based on toolkit. I could give you all the science, but it's boring, but it is there. And if any of you are further interested, or we want to take this further, we can. But for having a tea together, let's have some fun and look at learning the grounding, whether you understand it or not. It's a bit like your cell phone. My son's an engineer, and I can tell you now, I don't understand how my cell phone works, and I don't really care. All I need to know is how to use it. And I kind of want you to take that approach with these tools that I'm telling you about. It doesn't matter if you understand how they work, as long as you know how to use them, then you can actually get the benefit and function from them. So the first 3 steps in the toolkit are called grounding. Now, some of you probably heard that word before. It's a very fashionable word, but let me take you through the grounding. Will you play along with me? Will all of you do the exercises with me? I don't think it's going to take us more than 10 minutes. Will you give me some fun with you? Okay, so the first thing I want you to do, I want you, remember what I said, when we are feeling helpless, frightened, stressed, our primitive brain, which speaks the language of sensation, is what is in charge. So the very first thing I want you to check in with is I just want you to check in with yourself. And on a scale of 0 to 10, I want you to tell me where your current level of stress, sadness, anxiety, worry, uncertainty, helplessness, any of those things, or even all factors, where is that on a scale of 0 to 10? With 0 being 0, you don't have any problem, and 10 being, I'm at the top of the building and I'm really, really in trouble. So if you just check in with yourself, and because the 42 of us, I can't hear from everybody, but just make a number and write it down. If you have a piece of paper, if you don't, and you can remember it, just remember the number. Are you wherever on the scale? Done that? Everybody done that? Okay, great. Now we're going to start with our reset. So the first thing we're going to do is called the butterfly tap. I want you to cross your hands like that, across your body, one hand on each one of your biceps, okay? And then in your own time, I want you to tap 1, 2, 3 in your own rhythm. And I want you to count in your head each tap to 25 in your own time and in your own rhythm. Let's go. Let's play. You get to 25, we stop, we just breathe. And we're going to repeat that exact same exercise, tapping. Great. What I want you to remember is, I don't know if you're like me, but when I first was trying to figure out how to daven, I was told by a rabbi that it's really important that you say the words. It doesn't have to be out loud so that everybody can hear them, but you need to hear them. It's very important for your brain that you actually say the words. So when I say count, don't count in your head. I want you to make the sounds with your mouth. You can do it right out loud, 1, 2. You can do it quietly, depending on what works for you and where you're sitting. So the next exercise is also a counting exercise. And the way it works is I want you to look around you. I want you to look up and down and left and right all over the room. And I want you to count for me 10 different colors. And as you count them, I want you to say the number out loud. Okay, so find 10 different colors looking around your room. Let me know when you're done. Okay, great. Now I want you to do the same thing. Look all over the room, and I want you to find for me 10 different textures. Different textures. Just look all around and find 10 different textures. Okay. Let me know when you're done. Just look back at the screen. Excellent. You're doing so well. We're now done 2 grounding exercises, the tapping and the counting and looking around. We're going to count and look around one more time. This time I want you to make sure your feet are flat on the floor and use your imagination to imagine roots growing from your feet into the ground. I want you to look around the room again, and this time I want you to find 10 different shapes. Great, doing well. And then a normal breath. And now we're going to do what we call the self-soothing. Are you all with me? Excellent. Okay, so the self-soothing works like this. One hand on your chest and one hand on your belly. Just gently. And I want you to feel your body. Your body is with you all of the time. We spend so much time in our thoughts. We forget about our body unless it gives us an ache or a pain. But just take note. Here you are. Here you are. Breathing, living. Feel your hand on your chest and feel your hand on your tummy. And just for a minute, not even a couple of seconds, I want you to close your eyes and become aware of you resting your hands on your body. Just bring that to awareness. Okay. And now I'm going to ask you, if you check in with yourself on your own scale, where are you right now on that scale of 0 to 10? Anybody had a movement? Let me know. Did you have a movement? Put your hand up so I can see if you've had a movement. A movement downwards? Say yes. Down. Good. Everybody gone down. And excellent. Wow. Look at you guys. Okay, so there are 2 other stages in the toolkit. The one is the discharge and the other is the resource one. We can talk more about it at another time, but I don't necessarily want to use up all our time today. Michelle told me, hey, we're having a tea party, and I want to honor that and just remind you of a few things that we've done right now. The first thing is that we spend a lot of time talking about how we feel, not necessarily noticing our bodies. When we say, how do you feel? We need to also pay attention to the physical sensations. That is our body giving us messages around how stressed we are. And when you tune into that, just bring your attention to it and do the 3 grounding exercises. When I was doing this work with doctors during COVID right here in Israel at some of the hospitals that were worst hit, they're often just before ward rounds or on ward rounds where they were dealing with things. You would see them holding their hands like this and just gently, without distracting anybody else, tapping and grounding themselves. Very important to actually integrate, because the accumulation of stress, and when our animal bodies are just left uncontained, we can get into a state of activation. Not everybody gets post-traumatic stress. In fact, very few people do. However, accumulated stress without a release, and I'm talking about not necessarily therapy, even just a release in your body, is how we become either hyper activated, which is when we're in hyper arousal, we're bad tempered, we're scatty, we jump at every noise, we kind of panic, we feel very, very irritable and angry, or hyper arousal, when we become absolutely frozen, depressed, low energy, struggling to get up, struggling to do the basic things. Both of those areas are normal responses to stress in the body when your autonomic nervous system is in disarray. And if we can start bringing them back together and help each other, we can really, really heal each other very, very simply and very, very quickly. And I've seen it. So I would love to teach you about discharge and resources, but just a quick word on resources. What Michelle has done today and what Telfed is doing today is a resource for all of us. A resource is a bridge that we can build physiologically by having a memory of something good. So our connections to one another, the teas you used to go out to have, the things you used to look forward to. It's really important to know that you can create that memory in your body of having a connection with someone else, because remember, our neocortex is also responsible for how we socialize and how we interact with people. And it's very important for us to connect to the power we have. Just like terrorism is about making us feel like we've lost our power, in fact, the power you have to be healthy, to actually act healthy, and to connect healthy is within your control. Nobody can take that away from you. And your body remembers. So even if you're having a bad day and you haven't seen your friends or your daughter or your children or your grandchildren, instead of focusing on that, you could take a moment, take a breath, do the 3 grounding, and then remember a time when you felt really, really good. Anything that brings you pleasure. It can be a memory of a person, a place, a smell, a taste, even an idea that you tell yourself. Like, I'm really good at quilting. I had a lady who really felt that she was an excellent quilter. And that made her feel strong and resourceful. And then she remembered in her body what those sensations were like. And she replaced the one sensation, which we call the trauma vortex, with the healing vortex. So the power you have is unbelievable. I just want to really tell you, don't underestimate that. You are a mighty, mighty world with mighty, mighty skills that you may not always be fully aware of. And yeah, so thank you for having tea with me. Mine's gone a bit cold. I hope yours was actually able to be drunk warm. I'm not sure if there are any things that you want to do. I did promise Michelle that I would leave some space for all of you to connect up if you wanted to, or to chat to me. Michelle, can you give me some thoughts here?
Yes, well, firstly, I'd just like to say thank you very much, because coming into this, I rated myself, I think, a 9. I'm sitting with my colleague here, and I think she could attest to that. And after a few of your techniques, I also immediately felt like my score came down. So I think they're very, very good tools, and they're good takeaway value for all of us, and simple grounding exercises. So thank you very, very much. I'd love to open to the floor and see if there's, I think you're a mind full of wonderful information. So is there anybody that'd like to ask Elana any questions? I see Yael's pointing a finger. Yael?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. I found that when the situation struck, I was running around. I was loading my car full of vegetables, and I was taking and getting donations and buying things. Where does that fit into the trauma story?
Well, that's a beautiful question. And I see it all around me. I've also felt it myself. And then my friends and colleagues and clients and people that are in crisis are saying, I'm worried if I can sustain it. But basically, stress has really, our limbic system has got two ways to release the stress hormone. So the one way that we release the stress hormone is energy. Positive energy. Now, I don't know if any of you have seen videos of like moms with superhuman strength. I had this after my father died. My sister ripped open a trailing door in his cottage, and she's not much stronger than me or bigger than me. And so we get this burst of energy, and we don't know where it comes from. That burst of energy, that is coming from the way that we're made. And it is a natural release us cope with situations. And I think what has happened is that that energy has been released, and the most amazing frantic activity and energy. Remember, energy when it's positive is called eustress, okay? Energy when it's released and it's negative, and that is fear, violence, anger, negativity, that is distress. It's the same hormone, but it's a different layer of our activation. So that's where it comes from, Yael. It's coming from your clever body, and your bodies need to get you moving because it feels like that's what you need to be doing. But it's also okay to take a rest.
Yeah. I'm resting.
Glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear.
Who else? Anybody else got some questions for Elana? Can't see anyone here.
Which is run by Hamas, and
Somebody's got the news on.
I'm not sure that's for me. I think that's for the University Journal.
Can I ask you a question, Elana? This constant news that is in our ears all the time, and the social media that's filtering in our minds and all the time, how is that elevating our stress levels?
Really, really toxic. Really, really toxic. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I'm going to mute everybody for this. Do this thing.
Don't leave it on.
Yes.
Okay.
And now unmute her.
Okay, hold on. Unmute her. Wait.
She's on the list. Oh, she's co-host.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh,
There we go.
she's been muted.
Really toxic, Michelle. And I know, speaking about myself and my family and my close friends and the people that I have been really dealing with on trauma, the news currently is not about information. The news that we're receiving is very, very toxic. It's full of trauma. It's full of violence. It's full of uncertainty. It is a really important way to self-preserve, to not be watching the news and to be linked to social media constantly. That is clinically and in the field we are seeing it is a way of increasing trauma. In fact, if I were to be so bold, I would say that that is a Hamas tactic. That part of what is happening in Israel is with all of us re-traumatizing ourselves, watching the same images, watching them over and over, is putting us in this cycle of really negative overstimulation. And our autonomic nervous system is activated beyond our resilience level. And then we are seeing secondary trauma when people, as I said, become either hyper active or hyper aroused, and even, you know, my friends, I'm seeing husbands and wives arguing, fighting. All of that is coming from the re-traumatization. Children exposing, they say, be careful what you expose children to, be careful what you expose yourself to, because trauma is actually something that moves through the atmosphere. When if we were all in a room together, I would do a little experiment for you. I have a tiny little ball. It looks like a ping pong ball. You all know what a ping pong ball looks like. And I've had it specially wired up so that it becomes a circuit. So there are two little wire pieces on it. And if you put your finger on both pieces at the same time, here, say the ball is here, and don't have the ball with me, otherwise I would show you. On both pieces, that closes the circuit, right? It goes through my body and travels that electric current through my body to the other side and completes the circuit. And if I were holding hands with 40 of you, 100 of you, 5,000 of you, if we held hands, we would have that same electrical impulse move through us all the way through, no matter how big our circle was, and reconnect and turn that ball on. So the more we're watching all of this stuff, the more we're staying connected to the trauma vortex. And you know, like if you're going to get stuck out at sea, Michelle, where there's a vortex, a riptide, and you're going to try and fight in that riptide, you're going to get pretty exhausted. The quickest way to save your life is get the hell out of the vortex. Stop trying to survive in the vortex. So definitely, if it's at all possible, and I know it's scary, the first rule of self-preservation is unhook yourself from that.
Thank you. Very, very wise words, which I personally will take on. Is there anybody else that's got any questions? I see it's Marge. I'll ask. Unmute you there, Marge.
Hi, it's Margaret Becker. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks, Elana. That was great. I worked with the Jewish schools and community service for many years doing trauma work. And one of the things that doesn't get mentioned is the role of music and movement to music and dance. And just vibrating and shaking after you are traumatized, and how that releases stress. And I'm quite surprised, because music is very powerful and it's used with children, but we don't mention it to adults.
Well,
what is your comment on that?
Well, I can only really amplify what you've said. So in terms of, remember what I said, the toolkit has got 5 steps. So the 3 steps are the grounding. The second step is the discharge, which is generally accompanied by a physical sensation. And when we work with children, we have the terrible misfortune now of working with the children. And I was just told yesterday that I'm going to be asked to support the workers who are preparing for the hostage release of all our babies and children. Thank God. Please, God, may it happen soon. Not that I have any particular intel, but I have been working on putting a group of people together for that. And the bottom line is movement is critical. So get up and move. It's a little bit like the question earlier. It's part of the energy that's stored in your body. And if you don't expel it, it's going to become disease and it's going to turn toxic. That's number one. And I think the fourth step is also about resources. The last step, remember I mentioned to you, now music is a resource. Beautiful sounds, they are vibrations and they carry into our bodies and they create positive sensations. And if we can reconnect that, exactly, our body remembers. Our body remembers and knows how to do that. And it is a great part, not only of survival, but of actually thriving. So excellent point. And if we do feel music is a resource, use it.
I also have limited myself to only reading information. I don't watch unless it's positive, like things about good things about what's happening.
Like actors, unity, and people being good to each other, of course. Of course.
Okay. Elana, somebody's posted in the chat. How do you deal if you're not sleeping? People are not, they can't sleep at night, and how does one deal with that?
So those are some of the ways that our aroused activation manifests in our body. Some of it is sleeplessness, some of it is aches and pains, God forbid, disease. This is all part of our body, sorry, there's a huge mosquito here, our body giving us feedback around the fact that we are over activated. So my suggestion would be, for those people who are struggling to sleep, try the 3 grounding exercises. You can do it lying down. Very important to go through them systematically. Firstly, check in with yourself. Just ask yourself, where are you on the scale? Don't think too much. Don't ask too many questions. Don't try and get into too much information in your brain. Just take a view, take a number, like in bingo, right? And then go through the 3 steps. Do the tapping, even lying down, gently, count to 25, tap rhythmically, take a breath, do it again. Then I want you to look around the room, find 10 objects of different colors, find 10 objects of different textures, and 10 objects of different shapes. Take a breath, put your hand on your heart, your hand on your tummy, and remember, here you are, right here, right now. Here you are, taking care of yourself. Just take a breath, look at where you are on the stress scale, and then go to a resource. If music, listening to something that brings you pleasure, put it on, listen to it. If it's an object, put it right next to you. My daughter was saying the dog, so she's sleeping with the dog now. Whatever it is, sleeplessness is definitely feedback that you are in outside of your, you've exceeded your zone of resilience, let's say.
Okay, wonderful.
And you can get it back.
Yes, God. Elana, thank you so much. I think that it's been very valuable, and I think we'll all agree that it's stuff that we can use going forward. And please God, we all don't have to use these things, but thank goodness we've got the tools now. And I just really want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. You spoke so beautifully and so sincerely, and we all really, really got to hear you and understand you. I'd like to make a special thank you to all of our coffee clubs that have joined us. I said it earlier, but it's wonderful to have everybody together in what I call the unity. It's a play on the word, but the unity is very important. I think one of the things that you were saying is connecting or doing something that makes us feel happy. And I think connecting with other human beings and other wonderful women and gentlemen like that are on the Zoom is very important for everybody. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. And if you feel that this is something that we could do a little bit more of going forward, I'm very happy to continue organizing these kind of events. And let's all help one another on this journey. Let's get stronger together. Thanks to everybody for attending. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you,
everybody. Thank you. Bye.